I just wanted to record a quick video today about something that keeps coming up in a lot of my mentoring situations. It's come up, I think, twice in the past week alone, and it's been on my mind. And so I just wanted to kind of put this out there, maybe see how other people view this, get some other ideas on the subject. But graduate students are kind of nerves all over, and I understand that. Having been a graduate student twice myself, it takes a toll emotionally, and there's a lot of things that can make you feel like you're not really making progress. And one that keeps coming across is something I think that could be described as intangible inputs versus tangible outputs. And this is something I really wish I had known going into graduate school, really both times. So I also wish that more mentors got this idea across, or that it came up in sort of the formal training and maybe some of the coursework that graduate students take. I think a lot of graduate students come into graduate school with some idea that they're going to be creating new knowledge, but they don't really know what that's going to entail. I think one of their expectations is that they're going to have this sort of linear output in terms of tangibles, whether these are papers that they write or meetings that they go to and talks that they give or posters that they present. There's this idea that this is a linear process from not knowing anything to the dissertation, and that's going to be a straight line. And so that's understandable. If you've never been through that process before, I get how that idea might plant itself in your head. It doesn't take long before you realize that that expectation isn't really going to come to fruition, and that can be anxiety-provoking and discouraging. I see a lot of graduate students who seem to think that they aren't being productive, and if they aren't being productive, then they're failing in some way. Also, graduate school is an open-ended process. There's no clear end date in mind when you're doing research. So all of this time that you are not producing these tangible outputs feels like you're just adding to this indefinite future. And that can be really discouraging and depressing, I think, for a lot of graduate students. I know it was for me, because the reality is more like this, where for a lot of your time, the first few years anyway, you're not really producing a lot. You're learning things, you're reading papers, you're exploring ideas, going to seminars, taking classes, watching videos. That's all valuable time. I would say it's invaluable time, but it's time where you're not really producing a lot. And while you're in that stage, it feels interminable. But those of us who have been through the process, those of us who have mentored graduate students through this process know that it's a building process. It's more like an exponential rise. And so all of these little things that don't seem to be building to any kind of, tangible result are building on themselves. And eventually they grow, and they grow exponentially, they grow quickly, so that you do get to the dissertation, you get to that end point. And the actual productivity part in terms of papers that you produce and talks that you give, the dissertation itself, most of that happens at the very tail end of your graduate tenure. And that rapid rise is only possible because of all of that work that you were doing before. So there's the expectation, there's the reality, and then there's that effort that you're putting in before that. And those are what I would call intangible efforts. These are the things that, these are the rabbit holes that you go down. These are the wrong turns that you take, the dead ends that you meet. All absolutely necessary to create new knowledge, and so important to your development as a scholar. But it doesn't produce anything that you can look at and hold and put up, for others to see that, look, I've accomplished these things. And at the same time, because you're not producing anything, and we live in a culture that is so obsessed with productivity, that's how we measure whether we've had a good day or not, is how productive we've been. And you're having lots of those days where you're not being productive in that sort of traditional sense. And at the same time, you're what one scholar called a confused fact finder, especially in the beginning. You're throwing your net out as widely as possible, and you're reading everything that you can get your hands on, and you're putting these ideas together, and some of them don't belong together. And you get some things wrong, and yes, you have ideas that 2 years down the road are going to seem silly to you. You're going to be ashamed that you had those ideas, but that's part of the process. Of course you're going to have stupid ideas and crazy ideas, and you're going to put things together that don't belong together, and you're going to get a lot of things wrong, and that's okay. Do that, be that, own that, because there's not going to be another time in your life where you're going to be as free to do that in as safe an environment as you are while you're in graduate school. A lot of mentors may not get that point across to you, but it's absolutely essential to your progress. And so you have this early stage where you're doing a lot of work that doesn't produce tangible outputs, and it can feel like you're spinning your wheels. You have no idea what you're doing. You feel foolish, uncertain. You wonder if you've made the right decision. Have faith in the process, because as it goes on, those little things, those little bits and pieces that you do put together that actually cohere, they build on one another and have a snowball effect. And really, most of your output, the kinds of things that we normally think of as productivity, those things that we value in society, those things that we can put up at the end of the day as accomplishments, those happen at the end, and they build on one another. So have faith in that process. Give yourself room to spread your wings and to play with these ideas and to explore your intellectual landscape as though you were a child in a park for the first time, exploring your environment. And do your best to just be gentle with yourself in that process. And if you're a mentor, please get this idea out to your graduate students, or at least be sensitive to the fact that they're experiencing this. It's easy for us years down the road to forget that we went through this process ourselves. And I think it's easy for us mentoring students to recognize that this is a regular thing, and so why should it be a big deal to the students going through it? Well, it's a big deal to them because they haven't been there before. So let's support each other in this process. Let's celebrate this process, so that people don't feel as lost and rudderless as they very often feel, especially in those first few years of graduate school. So, as always, be gentle with yourselves, kind to one another. Thanks for watching.